Let's get going here. Washington Commanders on the road at the Philadelphia Eagles. This is 6 as we sit right now. A couple of places actually juiced a little bit on that 6, and you have FanDuel out there at 6.5. So this thing has already moved through that 6 there at FanDuel. A total of 47.5, pretty much across the industry here in this one. We do get the full practice from Jalen Hurts. I know everybody worried about what's going on with him there. I as well do wonder about how effective he can be, Mo. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it might not matter, right? I mean, this is basically Saquon versus the Commanders' run defense, and can the run defense for Washington do anything to stop this freak of nature?
I'm not sure if they can. Yeah. They haven't. 2 prior meetings. I think it was 198 total yards and 150 total yards or something like that. So they were pretty much inept at stopping him before. Obviously, they did manage to win one of the games in a shootout. I don't know how much to take away from, especially that second game. Jalen Hurts got hurt early. That was basically a Kenny Pickett start. But at the same time, I mean, you just look at some of these props. The market is definitely skeptical of Jalen Hurts, and I'm with the market. But then at the same time, you have this movement towards the Eagles. So I don't understand how those two things are a thing, because you have Saquon Barkley's rushing attempts prop at like 24.5, 25.5. That's multiple attempts above his average, multiple attempts above his median this year. So I'm not sure what's going on there, because I don't really think they can cover 6.5 unless Jalen Hurts plays like we know he is capable of.
Right.
But man, the last 2 weeks have been ugly. He has under 300 passing yards in the playoffs, and some of the yards he's got are like, take a snap, wing it 1 yard A-dot to Dallas Goedert, and he stiff arms a guy 40 yards down the field. I mean, they still didn't trust Jalen Hurts to do anything on third. I think they should have lost to the Rams. Maybe I'm being just sour grapes about my future, but I think the Rams should have won that game. At the same time, there's concerns for Washington. Sam Cosmi, he might be their best lineman. He's done. Pretty sick situation, tearing his ACL in the playoffs. The Eagles are 32nd in pass rate over expected this year. I mean, they're first in rushing rate in the regular season. They've been running the ball more than that in the playoffs. So it's like you said, it really does come down to probably stopping Saquon. I don't know how predictive home run running plays are. I guess they are somewhat predictive with Saquon, but I'm tempted to play Washington money line again in this spot. That being said, this is a tough matchup for their offense. I mean, Jaden Daniels performed much better last week when he was blitzed. We know the Eagles aren't going to blitz. We know they're going to sit back in their zone. They're going to do Fangio things, and that will make things tougher. Washington has to run the ball effectively. Same thing I said about Green Bay. Same thing I said about the Rams. The Rams did it. Green Bay did not. And Washington hasn't shown any ability to run the ball in this matchup. They got completely stonewalled, even though the Eagles love playing light boxes, both of the first 2 matchups. So I'm a bit worried about that. I did make a bet here, though. I think no matter which way the game script goes, I am skeptical of this Eagles offense. I took under 27.5 team total here. I like that quite a bit. That's the first thing I put into my account this week.
Yeah, you take a look here and you talk about this pass game for this Eagles team. 3.9 yards per drop back in the 2 postseason games this year. I mean, it's wild to talk about that this team advanced when we are saying 3.9 yards per drop back, and this team is in the damn conference championship game. It's crazy, but Saquon has just been that good. They've ridden him so well. And then you get this guy coming to town with this bullish offensive line that has gotten him to where he is first in the NFL in yards before contact, going up against a defense that is 32nd in the NFL in yards before contact allowed. And so it's just, can they do anything? Is there anything that they can change to try and neutralize Saquon Barkley? And if that's the case, you just try to put it on Jalen Hurts' shoulder, which may or may not be hurt, which knee may or may not be, all the stuff that's going on with Jalen Hurts in this. And I guess the question is, though, Mo, is you would think that a lot of teams have that exact same, philosophy, and it's just not something that's been able to be done so far with all of this. I mean, I understand why the rushing prop is at 25 carries. If they don't get him 25 carries in this game, they're probably doing it wrong, And so, like, I don't know about him getting to 100, and I think the market high is all the way up to like 100 and friggin' 27 and a half or something on his rushing yards. So, I mean,
think
that's
it's higher.
Yeah, like
I think it was like 132 or
yeah,
something.
Yeah, it's like just insanity. And you mentioned with Hurts, the market low is 180 on his passing yards. I mean, like 180 yards. We're talking like Jake Hayner level stuff here, when he was making starts for the Saints and everything. And so I don't know. It's pretty tough for me. I have a de facto, just kind of let people know. It's kind of like you were talking about with the Rams. So I have like a de facto future ticket kind of already on this. Every year I take the like dart Super Bowl ticket type deal. And so I actually have an Eagles over Bills at 75-1 Super Bowl ticket. So I kind of have a play in this already, but when it was 4.5, like the market came in really strong on the Commanders to start. And when it got down to 4.5, it had just gotten too low for me. And I understand that it's a pretty easy game plan, you would think, from a defensive standpoint for the Commanders. Go in, stop Saquon, make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm. He may or may not be healthy, all these things, et cetera, et cetera. But no one's been able to do it. No one's been able to go in there. Like you said, like Jaden Daniels not going to have those lanes to get all the scramble yards because, again, they're not going to blitz. They're not going to get a ton of crazy lanes opening up for him. So I just wonder what this Commanders offense looks like too. So when it got to 4.5, I thought it was a little too much of a move. Now we're back to the 6.5. I think it's probably a little bit more appropriate. And of course, now that being said, if it gets to 7, which I mean, hell, it's already gotten to 6.5. If it gets to 7, then I think the side's the Commanders, So it's just one of those deals with me. So let's talk about a guy here that you and I have talked about 3 different times on this podcast, wondering why they continue to do with Brian Robinson what they continue to do with Brian Robinson. But the thing is that they just do it with him. And so you have a 35.5 rushing yards out there for Brian Robinson. He's incredibly inefficient. But the problem is they just keep letting him run the ball, Mo. So it's like, we're looking here. He played in 16 games this year. He got at least 10 carries in 13 of those games. And one of the games he didn't, he was hurt in. And so he left. So basically in 15 of the games that he actually played, he got at least 10 carries in 13 of the 15 games. And so despite how incredibly inefficient he is, they continue to just give him the ball over and over and over and over and over again. And his carries is sitting at 9.5. Like his carries is at 9.5. His yardage is at 35.5. I just don't know what to do with this guy. Like, I'm trying to make good prop bets no matter what I think his talent level has fallen off a cliff over the second half of the season for whatever reason. But if they're going to keep giving him the carries, I kind of just have to give in to what they're doing as opposed to what my brain is telling me.
Yeah, I'm a little bit bullish Brian Robinson as well, even though they haven't been able to run the ball. I kind of liked, you can get anytime touchdown around plus 200. I think that's worth it, man. I mean, 15 carries last week. He kind of reappeared, 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's like you said. I don't know if he's playing hurt or what the situation is there, but he hasn't been able to do much in the second half of the season. He was very, very good in the first half of the season. But I fully expect the Eagles to be playing as many light boxes as they think they can get away with. Yeah. So I kind of think, I could see a decent Brian Robinson game here as well. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that decent to get past 35.5.
Exactly. That's why, again, I hated it. I had to throw it in. I took a little sprinkle of the over 9.5 as well because, like, it seems like they're going to get this guy double-digit carries come hell or high water, and so I kind of went there. As far as the total sits at 47.5, what's our case for the over and what's our case for the under here?
I think the case for the over is Jalen Hurts being healthy again and being able to throw because this is obviously a beatable defense. I think Washington wins will sometimes go over. Yeah. But that's why I like the Eagles team total under as well because I could totally see them winning this game like 24-16 or something. Yeah. But if they lose, I do not see them surpassing 27.5 points. Yeah. I just am a little bit bearish on this Washington offense relative to what they've been putting up the last few weeks.
Yeah.
This is a much tougher test. I mean, Detroit was basically a disaster at that point. They blitzed a ton. It wasn't working. They wanted to go down swinging, which I completely understand. Nothing was really working. If nothing's going to be working, I'd rather just press the variance button and blitz. So I completely understand that. It reminds me a little bit of like 2018 Chiefs that were just constantly blitzing and playing man. Well, the defense sucked. So, I mean, just blitz it as often as you can and see if you can create a big play. I mean, I'm kind of with that. So I get it. And then Tampa Bay, they obviously had a lot of success, but there was a lot of longer drives in that game. So that game ended up being a little bit more low scoring than the market expected. I'm leaning to the under, obviously, since I like Eagles team total under, but could I see this game going over? Yeah, but I think Jalen Hurts would have to play a lot better. We have not seen above replacement level quarterback play from him in the playoffs. So I don't know if it's lingering concussions, other nagging injuries, or what, but I am very skeptical you can win 4 playoff games in a row with this sort of quarterback play. So that's why if I were to bet a major market in here, this game, I would just probably, besides the under, maybe I would bet Washington money line just because. Would it surprise me one bit if Washington won? No.
Yeah. I think the case for the over here for me is, like you said, you can't predict these home run plays, but like it's basically going to take 2 Saquon busting, 40+ yard deals, because if not, then it's just going to be this like him 5 yards at a time, 5 yards at a time, 5 yards at a time, and it's going to be like a dead ass under game, right? And like the only way I think this thing gets over, he breaks a couple, then Washington kind of has to play in like hair on fire mode, right? Which is basically then they just have to like go in and there's throwing every down, going forward on 4th down every time, et cetera, et cetera. Like that's kind of the formula I think for an over. I don't really see that either. So I have a pretty strong lean to the under. That said, in these solo games, these island games, I'm going to hold out and see if I can get an extra half point or a point with people coming in and betting overs, because we all know the betting public loves to bet overs. And so I'm going to sit on it a little bit and see if I can't get a little bit better number here in this one. But yeah, Brian Robinson stuff for me. I took the 4.5 on the Eagles. That's long gone, so that doesn't matter to anybody out there in this one. And, it's a really low number for Jalen Hurts, 180 yards. This is kind of one of those like in-game prop deals. Several of the books are offering the in-game props now. If you see they're willing to throw it a little bit earlier in this game, I mean, 180 yards is low. I mean, that's just a low total for any NFL quarterback. Like I said, these are like full-on Jake Haener numbers that you're seeing here for Jalen Hurts. And so I think maybe that would be the only other look here for me.
I think I looked at some game props. Mm-hmm. One of them that was a little bit interesting to me was, I don't think I'm going to bet this, but Washington longest touchdown plus 125. I kind of like that one. Yeah. There's such dogs there that you don't usually see numbers like that with an offense like Washington. I mean, if we anticipate that the Eagles are running in all of their touchdowns, which they pretty much have been so far.
Right.
I mean, obviously Saquon can just rip off a 70-yarder, right? Yeah. So it's like,
yes.
But at plus 125, I mean, I think the chances are that Washington is going to have the longer passing TD. So at that point, you're pretty much just fading a home run shot, which, like I said, I don't know how predictive that is. I mean, with Saquon, it probably is predictive on some level, but that one was a little bit interesting to me.
So as far as the playoff leaders market goes, I mean, look, you look at this, Saquon Barkley is plus 125 to lead the playoffs in rushing touchdowns. The next closest, Derrick Henry just is the current lead right now, but that's an interesting market. Most passing yards in the playoffs, Jaden Daniels minus 235 over there in that market. He's probably likely to get a decent amount here. As you mentioned, Jalen Hurts such a massive dog, because even if he has a good game in this game, he's so far behind everybody else. I don't know. I think a lot of these like playoff leader markets are kind of already set. The only one that's at least somewhat interesting, I guess, to me is just the most receiving yards market out there. I mean, and we'll talk about that, I think, a little bit more in the next game whenever we get to that one. Guys, just a reminder, talking all of this over in the Discord as well, upper right-hand corner of thelines.com. That's absolutely free as well. We do not make you pay to become a member of our Discord. So go in there, talk to everybody over there about this game. Maybe they have some other angles in it as well if you haven't done so already. Again, everything we do free, so hit that subscribe button. Do appreciate it, and good luck on all your Commanders and Eagles bets.